Hi players, bonjour from Geneva, my name is Asaf and welcome to my channel Easy Board Games. Today I have the pleasure of presenting to you a how to play for Apex Legends that was published by Glass Cannon Unplugged. As always, if you learned something new or saw something that you like, consider subscribing to the channel. It's absolutely free and it's a huge way to help me out. A huge thank you to Adam from Glass Cannon Unplugged that made this video happen. Ready to see how it goes? Let's go to setup. Alright guys, so first of all I just want to tell you that this is going to be a Battle Royale 2 versus 2, which is something that is important to understand because in different modes of this game we're going to have maybe different components, different setup, and even different winning conditions. Let's start with going over everything that we can see right now on your screen. So for this how to play, I have chosen the Crossroads map, which is the first map that they're talking about in the rulebook. First of all, we're going to have the 0 level. This is everything that we can see over here with the playmat or with your board. Then we have a few buildings. We have the level 1 buildings. That is of course one floor above the 0 level. And we have the second floor buildings, which are the buildings on top of the first one. So level 0, level 1, and level 2. Also, we have a few miniatures on the map, as you can see. Some of them are the respawn beacons. Those are these miniatures on the corners of the map. And also we have the closed supply bins. Those are these miniatures over here. At the corners of the map, we have something that is called the ring that we're going to talk about a little bit later. After that, we have a few obstacles over here, but don't worry, we'll talk about terminology a little bit further down the video. We have over here some walls and we have half walls. Next to the main board, we have the aim board and we have the aim cards, and also we have the round and the initiative board. This is what we can see over here. Next to it, we have the entrance board with some entrance cards and some tokens that we'll talk about in just a few more seconds. Next to it, we have the weapon cards and the loot cards. So the map, as you already can see, is already set up, which surprisingly is quite easy to do. So don't worry about it. I think that you'll be able to pick it up very quickly. Regarding the different legends, we have over here two teams, the blue team right over here and the red team on the right side. Now, again, I'm going to use some of the first game rules, so I'm not going to talk about the drafting of the legends, but again, this is something that is quite easy to understand from the rulebook itself. As they propose, on the blue team, we have two legends. One of them is Bloodhound and the other one is Gibraltar. And on the red team, we have Bangalore and also we have Wraith. For the setup of the legends themselves, for 3 out of the 4 legends, I have already prepared the setup, but let's concentrate on Wraith right over here and see how to set up our own legend. So we're going to have here a few elements. First of all, we have the legend board, which is what we can see over here. Now, in general, in your own gameplay, you will have to put over here a screen that is going to hide the backpack, which are the slots that we have on the board, from the other players. For the purposes of explaining the game, I have taken them off so we can really see everything quite easily on the camera. Then we're going to take this shield and health boards that have basically 4 dials, as you can see. We're going to set up the shield for 20 and the hit points for 40. Then we're going to shuffle the fit cards and we're going to draw 3 of them into our hand. Then we're going to place the 2 ability cards face up next to our board. On top of that, we'll need to take these 2 double-faced death box / victory points tokens, and we're going to place next to it our own draft legend card face up, of course. We're going to take all the components corresponding to our legend. In our case, we have these 2 tokens and these 2 miniatures. Don't worry, we'll see it a little bit later. Also, we'll need to draw 4 weapon cards, and for those we're going to choose 2 of them. For the sake of this how to play, I have chosen these 2 weapons, and after that set the ammo track according to what we can see at the top right corner of the card. For these 2 weapon cards, we have 2 ammunition for each one of them, so both of these markers are set to 2. Then we're going to take the 3 starting gear tokens, which are the helmet, the body shield, and the knockdown shield. After then, we're going to draw 4 common loot tokens, which are the gray that we have over here, and also 4 rare loot tokens, which are the blue ones that we have over here. So in general, I just placed it outside of the screen. We have 3 bags. One of them is for the common loot tokens, the blue is going to be for the rare loot tokens, and we have the purple bag for the epic loot tokens. Now, in general, when you have a loot token, you need to decide if you're going to keep it, if you're going to fit it into one of your weapons, or you're going to simply discard it. For the setup procedure, if we decide not to keep one of the tokens, or we simply don't have anything to do with it, we're simply going to discard it. So we have really a lot of loot tokens, but let's talk about some of them that are going to modify a little bit our own legend. Starting with this token that we have over here, that is the body shield, of course, a rare one since this is blue. And when we're going to replace it with our own, we can see that on the token, it says that we're going to increase our shield by 10, and then we're going to flip it to the other side. So from 20, we're simply going to make it 30, and then we can flip it just like this. Next, we also have a helmet, so we can replace it also. Let's put it right over here. And also we have a knockdown shield that is rare, which is of course better than the starting one. We can place it right over here as well. These three tokens we can simply discard from the game and put it back in the box. Then we have something that we can fit to one of our weapons, so we can actually place it either here or here. And basically every time that we're fitting something into our weapon, we need to make sure that it matches and we can actually put it on the weapon. So as you can see, we have this iconography that has to match the iconography that we have over here. In our case, we can fit it to any one of the weapons, so let's just do something and place it over here. Then we have a few other tokens. We can simply place it in our backpack, and that is something that we'll be able to interact with a little bit later when we'll start taking turns. So we have over here a shield cell that will be able to regenerate some of our shield, and also we have a syringe which will be able to contribute to our health once it will drop, and I promise you that it will drop. Also on top of that, we have two types of grenades, so let's place them right over here, and don't worry, we'll talk about them a little bit later. Now, in general, every game of Apex Legends is going to consist 3 stages. The first one is the Legend Loadout, which is exactly what we have done right now with all the equipment that we have acquired. The second stage is the map drop, and the third stage is the meat and bones of this game, which is the final encounter. So let's move on to the second stage, which is the map drop. For that, we're going to use this entrance board that we have next to the main board, and we have randomly placed one reward token in each side of this board. Next to each one of these tokens, we have drawn from the purple bag one epic loot token to place next to it. Now we can flip to the other side all of these tokens and then move on to the next step. Now, starting with the blue team, they're going to choose one of their legends to place next to one of the sides of this entrance board. But also it's important to understand that you can place more than one legend in one of those sides. Now let's start with the blue team taking Bloodhound right over here, and they're going to place it again in one of those sides. Let's say that they're going to place them right over here. Now what happens is that Bloodhound is going to take this epic loot token into their possession. Pay attention that when we're equipping it, we have the same thing as we have seen before, and we're going to add 10 energy into our shield and then flip it to the other side. Then the red team is going to do the same thing by choosing the same side or another one. The red team has decided to place Bangalore right over here and take this epic loot token, and they're going to immediately fit it to one of their weapons. And now we're going to go back to the blue team and we're going to place Gibraltar in one of the sides. So let's place them right over here and take this epic loot token, and we're going to replace this knockdown shield with the one that we have right now. And that leaves us with Wraith that is going to be right over here. So Wraith is going to take this token right over here. And unfortunately, they are not able to fit it to one of their weapons simply because they don't have a place to put it on. So they're simply going to discard it. And that means, again, at this point of the game that we're going to take it out of the game. Now, starting with the red team and alternating like we've done just now, we're going to start placing the legends into the board. So as you can see, we have on each one of these tokens, move and then a number, and on 3 of them, we have a small bonus. So we're going to talk about movement a little bit further down the video. For now, you're going to a little bit need to trust me on this one. So let's start with the red team, and we're going to take Bangalore that we have over here. And before we're taking the second bonus, we have to finish our movement. Over here we have movement 3, and we can see that it is orientated exactly as the map. So Bangalore is going to start from this side of the map, and they're going to move 1, 2 over here, and then one more step to the right. Then they can take their bonus, which is 1 common loot token. So from this sack, we're going to draw one of these tokens, and again, they're going to decide if they want to keep it or throw it away. In our case, we have over here a grenade, and they do decide to keep it with them, but as you can see, their backpack is completely full. In that case, they can decide to replace one of their equipments and get rid of the other one. So let's say that they decide to take this syringe out and place the grenade instead of it, and then this item we can simply discard from the game. After we're finished with that, we can simply take out this token and put it back in the box. In order to make this a little bit quicker, let me do it off screen, and then we're going to talk about the third stage of the game. Just something that is important to understand, even though it says over here move 3, this is move up to 3, you can also move 1 or 2. Now that we have finished with that, we're ready for the main event of the evening, and that is stage 3, the final encounter. Now in Apex Legends, we're going to have a series of rounds. In each one of them, the team that holds the initiative, in our case at the beginning is going to be the red team, they're going to activate both of their legends, and then we're going to slide this one to the right, then the blue team is going to activate both of their legends, and we're going to move on, and of course we're going to have something in between that is called the transition phase. In each one of the legend activations, we're going to have 2 action points that we'll be able to spend to do different things like interact, shoot, move, and a few other things that we're going to see through this how to play. For the Battle Royale mode, we're going to have an objective over here that is the winning condition that is called unique elimination. The game is going to end immediately when each enemy legend has been eliminated at least once. The second immediate winning condition is if your squad has 2 victory points in a 2 versus 2 like we have over here at the start of the activation of an enemy legend with no death box tokens, which are these tokens that we have seen before during setup. Then if neither squad has achieved the immediate victory by the end of the 8th round, this is what we can see over here with this iconography, then the squad with the more victory points win. If there is still a tie, then we need to consider the legends in each squad who still have both of their death box tokens. The one with more health points grants victory to their squad. And if still we have a tie, then no team has won, and we have over here a stalemate. So now, as we can see, the initiative marker is on the red color. The red team is basically going to take the first activation. Now the team needs to choose one of their legends to operate first, and then we're going to continue to the next one. So now let's understand what are the different actions that each legend can do on their turn. As a reminder again, each one of the legends have 2 activation points to execute on their turn, and the most common things that we can do are to move 2, interact and move 1, shoot, which is something that we can do only once per activation. We can use and move 1, melee attack and move 1, destroy 2 and move 1, or respawn, which is something that we have to do if our miniature is not situated on the board. Now I'm saying that these are the general things that all the legends can do, because some cards that we have, either the special abilities or the feat cards, they have keywords that are saying use 1 action point. For example, for Wraith, we have this card right over here that is called Dimensional Rift, and we can see that this is a special action that is going to cost for Wraith 1 action point. But we're going to again get to it a little bit later, and also we have here a ton of cards that we're not going to go into each and one of them. So let's start talking about one of the most common things that we're going to do in this game, and that is movement. So we're going to start with a few examples. For 1 activation point, we can move 2. Now, in movement in general, we can move to the sides, up and down, and also diagonally, just like this. Now, on top of that, we have a few things here on the board that are going to be tagged as obstacles. That can be, for example, this wall, and also half walls, and it will also be the supply bins that we have over here. On the other side, when we're looking at this spawning beacon, that is something that is going to be impassable, so we cannot move through it. Now, when we have one of these obstacles, to move through this obstacle, we need to spend one more movement point. So for example, to move Wraith from this position to the other side, what we'll need to do is to spend 2 movement points. One to move to the new free space, and we're going to add 1 movement point when we want to go over this obstacle. The same we're going to have over here with this supply bin, for example. So to move from here to here, we're going to spend 1 movement point just to move to the new place, and also 1 movement point because we're going through this obstacle. On the other side, when we're having this situation and we want to move from here to here, we can see that we have basically this supply bin that is touching a little bit the intersection that we have. In this case, we're going to look at the continuity of this supply bin, and if it is empty, we're going to spend only 1 movement point. So we're always going to consider the component which imposes the lowest movement restriction. In our case, since this is empty, to move from here to here is going to be only 1 movement point. On top of that, if we want to go up on the levels, first of all, we can never move 2 level ups with 1 movement. So for example, if I want to move from this place right over here to the top of the building, this is not going to be possible. But if I want to go from level 0 to the first level, this is again going to cost for me 2 movement points, 1 to move to the new place, plus 1 because we're moving 1 floor up. So in general, if Wraith want to go from here to here, we'll need to spend 4 movement points. 1 plus 1, that is 2, and then 1 plus 1, that is 2, so 2 plus 2, that is 4. On the other side, moving from any level to a lower level doesn't cost for us additional movement points. So if Wraith want to go from here to here, it's going to be only 1 movement point. If we continue with this, if Gibraltar want to go, for example, from this position, which is level 2, to this position, which is level 0, with only 1 movement point, what they will be able to do is to move over here. Some of the elements that we have specifically on this map, it's going to be this respawn beacon, is impassable. So it doesn't matter how much movement points we're going to spend, we will not be able to move from here all the way to here. Now, when it comes to movement, there is absolutely no problem to go through a space that already contains a legend, but we can never finish our movement in a space like this. Let's move on to the second thing that we'll be able to do with our activation, and that is to interact. So for 1 action point, I can interact and move 1. Let's see what does it mean. Now, when we want to interact, we can perform one of the 3 following. Either we're going to interact with 1 object that has the tag interactive, for example, a closed supply bin, or we'll be able to fit any number of attachments from our backpack onto our weapon, or we'll be able to return any number of weapon-fitted attachments to our backpack. Now, when we want to interact with one of the closed supply bins, what we're going to do is, first of all, how cool is that? I'm just going to open this to indicate that right now this is an opened supply bin, so we'll not be able to take loot from there anymore. Then what we're going to do is to draw one of these loot cards, and we're going to resolve what we have over here. In all the loot cards, we're going to draw 2 weapon cards from this deck right over here. On top of that, we're going to take all the loot tokens that we have over here and then again decide if we want to immediately attach them if there are attachment, or to leave them in our backpack. Let's talk for a few minutes about what does it mean to acquire a new weapon. When you're taking a weapon, you have a few possibilities. The first possibility is to simply replace one of the weapons with the weapons that you already have. If this weapon didn't have any type of an attachment, you're simply going to replace it, and don't forget to modify the ammunition marker that we have over here. Since this doesn't have the same type of ammunition, let's say that we had 4 ammunition with the previous gun, now that we're replacing it, we need to take it down to 2, since this is the initial ammunition that we have with this type of weapon. All the weapon cards that we don't want to keep with us, we're simply going to completely discard from the game. Another 2 options that we have is if we have taken a weapon that has the same type of ammunition. In this case, we can decide. If we want to leave the weapon that we have with us, we can simply take the ammunition from the new weapon and add it to our track. In our case, since the number that we have here is 2, we're going to add 1, 2 ammunition on this track. On the other hand, if we have decided to take the new weapon, and again, it corresponds to the same type of ammunition, we can take the ammunition from the weapon that we're going to discard and add it again to the number that we have over here, to the initial ammunition. In our case, again, it's going to be 2, 1, 2. But just to make sure that we understand, let's say that right now, before we're taking the weapons, we have 3 ammunition, and again we decided to take this weapon card that we just found. I'm going to add the 2 to the already 3 that I have over here, so 1, 2, and now I'm going to have 5, and I can decide which weapon I want to keep. On top of that, the 3 loot tokens that Wraith has acquired are those. So they're going to decide to place this grenade and this shield cell in their backpack. For this helmet, since this is obviously better than the one that we have over here, they decide to immediately equip them. So we're going to place this token right over here, and now Wraith has a choice. Either to take this helmet and place it right over here in the last available space that they have in their backpack, or they're going to drop it. Pay attention that I'm emphasizing dropping it and not discarding it. So when we want to drop an equipment, you can either place it in the same location where you are, or they're going to drop it in a neighboring space. In our case, it's super simple. They can drop it in any one of these spaces. But pay attention that if we have this situation, for example, they will not be able to drop it on the other side of this obstacle because a neighboring space doesn't have obstacles between those spaces. And also they will not be able to drop it over here since this is a higher level. On the other side, if this is their location right now and they want to drop this equipment, they can drop it to a lower level. In our case, it will be here, here, or here. But they will not be able to drop it over here, again, because this is not a neighboring area. We have over here a level 2 and this is a level 1. The next thing that we'll be able to do with our legends is to shoot. That is something that is going to take from us 1 action point. But in order to understand shooting better, let's talk about one of the main aspects that we have over here in this game, and this is line of sight. Now, if you're an experienced tabletop miniature gamer, it's going to be super easy for you to understand, but if you're not, which is a little bit like me, then maybe you want to stick around for this explanation. So in general, line of sight is an imaginary line that is being drawn from the shooter to the target. And also it's going to be from a center of a space to another center of a space. So obviously, I think it's going to be pretty clear if I'm going to place these 2 legends over here and tell you that they obviously have a line of sight because there is nothing that disturbs this imaginary line. So this has a line of sight, also here we have a line of sight, and so on. Now, sometimes we're going to have some object with a blockage tag, again, just like we have with these walls over here. So if I'm going to place Gibraltar over here, right now, if I'm drawing this imaginary line, this is obviously going to cross these 2 blockage, so we don't have here a line of sight. But on the other side, if this is the situation, right now the line of sight that I'm going to draw between the 2 centers is actually touching this blockage, but we have here something that is called the 45 degrees rule, and that means that if this is the case, if the line is at 45 degrees to a blockage, then there is a line of sight. Now let's start to a little bit complicate things and talk about the different levels that we have and how it impacts the line of sight. We're going to start with something easy and say that Gibraltar is located over here. Let's try to understand which positions he will be able to see. So in general, when I want to calculate the line of sight and we have legends in different levels, I'm always going to start from the legend that is positioned higher, just because it's going to be a little bit easier to calculate it in this way. So basically I need to see from the higher legend what is the last blockage that they have until the legend that is situated in the lower level. Right now we don't have blockage at all. That means that they have a line of sight. But if I'm going to change it a little bit and I'm going to place Gibraltar right over here, right now the last blockage that they have is this edge of a building that we have over here, right? Part of the wall of this building. In this case, we need to see what is the distance between this legend and this last line of blockage. So at a 1 level difference, I'm simply going to take the distance and multiply it by 1. So distance of 1 times 1 is 1, of course. That means that this space is not visible. So Wraith is not going to be in their line of sight right now. On the other hand, if Wraith would have been right over here, then they do have the line of sight because this is the only space that Gibraltar cannot see. Let's try to complicate it even a little bit more. Let's say that we have this wall right over here, for example. So now the last blockage between Gibraltar and Wraith is this one. So what is the distance? It's 1, 2, right? And over here we already have the blockage. So that means that 1, 2 spaces they will not be able to see. Right now, since Wraith is located over here, there is a line of sight. Over here, they do not. Moving on with the same line of thought, let's say that Gibraltar right now is situated right over here. So let's try to understand together if they can see Wraith right now. Right now, the last blockage that there is between these two legends is this end of the building that we have. But because there is a 2-level difference, we're going to multiply it by 2. So the distance is 1 to the blockage, and now we need to multiply it by 2, so that means that 1 and 2 they will not be able to see. Right now there is no line of sight between these two legends, but if we're going to go out from this, so we have here 1 multiplied by 2, that is 2, then we're going to go 1 and 2. Since Wraith is located right over here, there is a line of sight between them. Just to make sure that we understand, if Gibraltar would have been located over here, now the distance to the edge is 1 and 2, times 2, that is 4, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, they will not be able to see. Wraith right now is not in their line of sight. Now guys, there are going to be probably many weird situations that you're not going to be sure of, but again, let me remind you that always start calculating the line of sight from the higher legend. It's simply going to do everything much easier for you to understand the line of sight. Going back to talk about shooting, that is the next thing that is probably a little bit more complicated in this game, but let's try to break it down so it will be super easy. For this example, I'm going to do something super simple and say that we have over here Gibraltar and also Wraith. There is obviously a line of sight, just like we've seen before. Right now it's Gibraltar that is going to shoot at Wraith. So here we have a small procedure that if you're going to stick to it, you're going to see how simple it is. The first thing that we have is to aim. So we need to choose a target in line of sight. So far, so good. Then we're going to choose a weapon and spend 1 of its ammo. In our case, Gibraltar has decided to use this weapon that is called L-Star EMG. So from 3, we're going to take this ammunition marker down to 2. The next thing to do is to determine the to-hit difficulty. Okay, so one of the parameters that we have over here, as we can see as the second icon, is the to-hit difficulty. In our case, it's 60 plus. Later we're going to understand what does it mean, but what I want to show you is something that we have over here on this weapon. It's already printed on it, and it says that if the distance between the shooter and the target is 1 or 2, then the to-hit difficulty is going to drop by 5. In general, when you are the shooter, you want the number to be as low as possible. Since this is not the case because the distance right now is 3, we're not going to have the modifier. On the other hand, if this was the case, then the to-hit difficulty would have dropped from 60 to 55. So let's keep it right now just like this. Now, sometimes you would like to shoot with a weapon, but your target is going to be outside of the optimal range of that weapon. So right now this is not our case, but just for a small example, let's say that Gibraltar would have been over here. Right now the distance is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that is outside of the range that we have over here, which is 2 to 4. Every time that you're shooting and your target is outside of your optimal range, you will need to increase the to-hit difficulty by 10 for each one of the distances that is outside of the optimal range. In our case, since this is one space outside of the optimal range, we're going to increase the to-hit difficulty from 60 to 70. Now pay attention that it's not necessarily further from the optimal range, it can be also lower than that. So for example, if we have this situation, since right now we have a distance of 1, which is 1 outside of the optimal range, again we're going to increase the to-hit difficulty by 10. Now if you have a card that has the tag Enhance Shoot, that is the time to use it. Unfortunately for Gibraltar, they don't have this type of card. And also guys, there are a lot of cards with different effects. You can simply go over the card itself and understand it. It's quite simple. The next step that we have is the enemy reaction before firing. So again, if the target has a card that has the tag reaction and before firing, they will be able to use it. And also their teammate will be able to use one of these cards as long as there is also the tag squad. In our case, Bangalore, which is the teammate of Wraith, does have a card like this that is called Take Cover. We're not going to really resolve this effect right now because we're going to add too much information, but I assure you that if you're just going to read the card, it's going to be quite understandable. So pay attention that we have on this card the three tags: reaction, squad, and before firing. Then we're going to move on to the third step, which is fire. So the first thing that we need to do is to reveal the aim cards. So if we're going to go again to the weapon card, we can see that with this third icon, we have 4 cards. So we're going to start draw these aim cards and place them over here across the aim board. Now, unless something else was mentioned to us, we are going to start and placing those cards from the 0 position. So if it is stated that we draw 4 cards, 1 card we're going to put on 0 and then 3 more cards going to the right side. Now here we have a few things that are going to sometimes adjust this thing, and that is called recoil and also stability. So let's take an example and say that we have this item right over here that is called barrel stabilizer. We're going to attach it over here just for a second to the weapon that we're going to use, and it says here stability 3. In this case, we're going to go to the 0 position and we're going to count 1, 2, and 3. And from here, we're going to start placing the cards that we need to draw. That is, of course, going to help us because over here on top of the board, we have positive modifiers. On the other hand, sometimes if we're going to have something that is called recoil, that is something that is going to impact us, but in a negative way. So if, for example, we have a weapon that we'll need to place 2 cards over here with 1 recoil, we're going to start placing the first one on 0. Then if we have the impact of recoil, we're actually going to skip 1 space and move to the next one. So if we have recoil 1, we're going to skip this one and place the second card over here. But again, this is of course not our case. I just wanted to talk about recoil and stability a little bit. Going back to our situation, we need to place 4 cards. So the first one was placed on 0, then the next one is going to be 1 step to the right, the third one, and of course the fourth one. Also, of course, some attachments are going to help us with increasing the number of cards, like what we have over here with the Bloodhound weapon attachment that is called Extended Light Mag. So as we can see with the iconography, we have here 1 more card that will actually allow us to play 1 more card over here and increase our chances to hit. The next step is to determine hits and headshots. So first of all, let's flip over the cards and see what do we have over here. Now that we have revealed them, we're going to go one by one and see where do we have an actual hit. So going with the first one, we can see that we have 35. On top of it, we have the 0 modifier, so it rests 35. Now, as a reminder, the to hit difficulty that we have is 60 minus 5, so it's 55. Every time that we're going to have here a number that is 55 or higher, it will be considered as a hit. So since the first one is 35, which is of course lower, we're simply going to take this card, put it on the other side and ignore it since it's not going to hit. It will be considered as a miss. Next, we're going to go over here. We have 80 minus 55, that is 75, which is of course higher. So we have 1 hit. Let's slide this card down. 70 minus 10, 60. So we have here again a hit. And we have here 65 minus 10, that is 55. That is really just enough to make sure that we do have here a hit. So let's slide this one as well. We have here basically 3 hits, and then we need to see if we have some headshots. So over here we can see that with this card we have this iconography, and because this card was a hit, then we're going to add a headshot as well. Now, different cards that we can draw from the aim deck have different effects with the iconography that we have over here. For example, when we see this iconography, it means that if you're shooting at a target that is higher than you, doesn't matter if you are managed to reach the threshold of the to hit difficulty, still if the target is higher than you, then this is a sure miss. This card says that if the target is behind a cover, for example, we have open or closed bin supplies that are going to give us some cover. Let's say that we would have had this thing, for example, then right now Wraith is behind the cover, and that means that this card says that even if you are in the threshold, then actually it's a miss because the target is behind the cover. Another example is this one, that means that if you're shooting at a target that is lower than you, then even if you didn't manage to reach the threshold of the to hit difficulty, still it's going to be considered as a hit. So now going back to the damage that we need to deal, we have a few things that we want to pay attention to. First of all, again, how many hits do we have? So we have 3, but also pay attention that we have this attachment right over here that says that for each hit that we have, we're going to add 2 damage. So the damage that this weapon is going to do is marked over here on the left side, and that is 8 damage. So we have 3 hits with 10 damage for each hit, that is 30 of course. And also, since we have 1 headshot, we're going to add the damage of the headshot to the total damage. In our case, it's going to be 34 damage that Gibraltar managed to cause to Wraith. Now pay attention that on the helmet of Wraith over here, we have ignore 2 headshots if the threshold is equal or lower than 60. But pay attention that in this case, we're not going to take into consideration the modifier that we have on the aim board, only the number that we can see on the card itself. Since this is not the case, and 70 is obviously higher than 60, the helmet that we have over here with Wraith is not going to help them. So we need to take 34 damage. We're going to take this dial over here and we're going to start lowering, first of all, the shield if we have. Since we did 34 damage, of course, then the shield is going to drop down to 0. And then we're going to take 4 more damage from the hit points. So we're going to go to 36 hit points that we have left. And with that, we actually finished taking damage with Wraith. Moving on to the next step, we have now the enemy reaction after fire. So again, just like we have seen before the enemy reaction before firing, we have the same thing with after firing. So if you have a card with these tags of reaction and after firing, or your squad member, but also they need to have the keyword squad, now will be the time to use it. In our case, Wraith actually have a card like this that is called Whispers, and we can see that the outcome will be any legend from your squad may move 2. So if they want to use it, there is absolutely no problem. They're going to take this card, put it in the discard area that we have over here. For the fit cards, that card will never go back to their hand or to the deck. And right now, one of the legends in their squad can move 2. The last thing that we have in the shooting procedure is just to reset the aim cards, which basically means to take all the cards that we have used, put them back in the aim deck and just give it a good shuffle, place it again next to the aim board. Finishing with shoot, I want to move on and show you what does the use action actually means. So we're going to go back to Wraith over here, and we're going to use Wraith in order to do 2 things. Use one of the consumable items that we have over here. In our case, what they will decide to do is to use this shield cell. They're going to discard it from the game, and they're going to add the effect, which is a +12 to their shields. So from 0, they're simply going to go up to 12. And also, since this action is use plus move 1, they decided to move over here. Now, the second thing that they would like to do is to use a grenade. So that is quite a cool thing that we'll be able to demonstrate right now. They have 2 types of grenades. I would like to show you the grenade that we have right over here. When they're using it, they're going to simply take it and they're going to flip it to the other side and placing it on a space that is in the right range. So what we have over here is the range of 1, 2, 3, and the range that we have over here on the frag grenade is 2 to 5. So what they would like to do is simply place this grenade right over here. Now pay attention that the frag grenade, while having the impact on everything, all the squares, all the spaces around it, we have another type of grenade that is called thermite grenade. And pay attention that when we're using it, because we have over here this line, what basically we need to do is also choose a direction. So if this was the grenade that was thrown, we need to decide if it's going to be like this or stay like this. We need to choose one before we're actually resolving the grenade. Over here, we can see that we need to draw 2 aim cards, but they don't have anything to do with the aim board. So we're going to draw 2 cards, one over here and one over here. And then we're going to flip them and we're going to look for these arrows right over here. Over here we have an arrow with this direction. So we're simply going to take this token and we're going to move it with the same direction to the next space, which means over here. Basically, it shows us how accurate we were with a grenade, which is, to be honest, quite a cool thing that we have over here. On the second card, we don't have anything, so these cards we don't need anymore. Now basically the grenade is going to explode and we're going to see what is the effects that we have, what is the damage. On the token it says that if you are standing on the space where the grenade exploded, it's going to deal to you 20 damage. And on top of that, you're going to have 10 damage to all the spaces around the grenade. So basically what we have over here is that Gibraltar is going to take 10 damage. I hope, needless to say, that if we had here more characters or something like that, then of course they would have been impacted as well from the blast of the grenade. After we have resolved that, we can simply take this token and discard it from the game. The next action that I would like to demonstrate is that for 1 action point, we can do something that is called a melee attack. So again, let's take a very simple example and say that we have this situation right over here. So in our case, Gibraltar, let's say, doesn't have any more ammunition or, I don't know, a good enough weapon for this distance, and they decide to go with a melee attack. In this case, what we need to do is to reveal 1 aim card. So let's do it right over here. And then we need to see if its value is 40 or more. If it is, which is exactly what we have over here with this card, then we're going to deal 4 damage to that enemy, and then on top of the damage, we're going to perform push 1. That means that in a straight line and away from us, we're going to push our enemy. In this case, it's going to be right over here. Now, if the enemy cannot be pushed, we're going to add something that is called a collision. In our case, in a melee attack, we're going to add 4 more damage. So what does it mean if the enemy cannot be pushed? Let's say that this was the case just like this, and right now Gibraltar is performing the melee attack. They drew a card, again it's 40, then they're going to apply the 4 damage and the push 1. Since further away from them, they cannot push Wraith, then we're going to have here a collision, and that is going to add 4 more damage to this attack. Also, something like this can happen if we would push someone off the map. That would activate collision as well. Sometimes it's going to be on a higher level, onto an occupied space on the same level. For example, if there is already a legend over there. And we have a short list that you can check out on the rulebook, since I don't want to take too much of your time. What I do want to add, and I'm going to create here some sort of a scenario to help us understand a little bit better. Let's say that this was the situation. We have Gibraltar over here. They're going to perform the melee attack on Wraith, and also we have over here this situation. Since right now collision is generally not activated if they're being pushed off from a higher level to a lower level, but in this case, since they want to push them, since there is already a legend over here, what will happen is that Wraith is going to receive that collision effect, so 4 more damage, and also they will have to choose to which neighboring space they will be pushed to. The almost last action that we have in a Legend's activation is something that is called Destroy. Here we will be able to destroy some miniatures with the tag destroyable. So again, feel free to consult the map objects in order to understand which one is destroyable, and also take into consideration that some of the miniatures that other legends are using also may have this destroyable tag. When we want to resolve this action, we need to follow a small procedure. First of all, we need to choose between using a weapon with ammunition or hand-to-hand. And by the way, this action is destroy two, so we can destroy two miniatures. But if we want to destroy two miniatures, we need to make sure that we're using the same attack to all the targets. So it sounds a little bit weird. Let's take a small example. Let's say that we have Wraith over here, and they don't like the two supply boxes that they have over here, let's say, and over here. What they can do is to use one of their weapons. So we chose the using weapon with ammo instead of hand-to-hand. Then we chose these two miniatures, so we're good to go. Both of them are in our line of sight, of course. And also they have to be in the optimal range of the weapon that we have chosen. But don't worry guys, again, we don't need to use ammunition. If we would have chosen a hand-to-hand attack, then of course, both targets would have to be adjacent to our legend. Then we need to resolve the effects that associate with the target's destruction. Sometimes we're going to have some sort of an impact if we destroy one of the miniatures, but in our case, there are no further effects. Then we need to return the miniatures of the destroyed targets to their owner's supplies, or obviously, in our case, both of them will go back to the box. And also, if there are any ability tokens corresponding to the destroyed miniatures over here under the initiative track, but don't worry, we're going to see it in a few more minutes, then of course those tokens are being placed back as well. The last and final action that we're going to have is the respawn. Now, sometimes, of course, what will happen is that one of the legends is going to die, and it's happening more often than you might think. So let's say that in one of the turns, Wraith was destroyed and their character is going to be placed next to their board. The next action that they have to take, obviously they cannot do anything else, is to respawn, and that is something that is going to cost to them 1 action point. In this respawn action, we'll need to place our legend miniature on a free space on the map adjacent to the respawn beacon closest to our squad mate. So right now, let's say that this miniature would have been over here, right? That is the squad mate of Wraith. Then they will need to take their miniature and place it in an adjacent space next to the beacon that is the closest to their squad mate. If, of course, we have an equal distance, then you can freely choose. After you have respawned, you can spend any remaining action points as usual. Some effects, by the way, will allow you to respawn for free, but I'm going to let you discover it on your own. The next thing that I would like to show you guys is something that is called Rush. Now, this is something that we can find at the bottom of any fit card. For example, if we're taking all of the cards that we have right now in the heads of Gibraltar, we can see that we have it at the bottom of the card. To use this rush, we can once per activation discard one of those fit cards and place it face up right over here in the discard pile in order to perform one of the two following. Either we're going to perform move 1, so just like we've seen before at the beginning of the video, a movement of 1 space, or what we'll be able to do is to add 1 movement point to an already movement. This use of a rush doesn't cost for us any activation points. So for example, I can discard this card and also perform for 1 action point move 2, again just like we've seen in the beginning of the video, and perform actually 3 movement points. So that basically means that we can move with that character 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3 just for the example. If we're already talking about cards, then some of the cards have this keyword that is called instant. And yes, just like it sounds, you can discard it at any time, even if it is not your activation or even if it's not your squad's activation, in order to use whatever text we have on this card. The last thing that I would like to talk to you about when it comes to activation of the legends is the special abilities. Now, each legend has 2 special ability cards. For example, like we have with Gibraltar right over here, we have the ability that is called Dome of Protection, and also we have the the defensive bombardment. So we have here two keywords that are kind of important for us. One of them is duration and the other one is delay. So let's continue with Gibraltar and actually resolve what we have on these cards. First of all, we can see that we have here the tag of free action, and that means that we can use this card without actually spending any action points. So now let's see what is the difference between delay and duration. Let's say that Gibraltar decides to use, first of all, the defensive bombardment, and they're going to execute what we have on the card. So we're going to take this mini and this token, and we're going to place it in a space that is in the distance of 0 to 5 from us. So since we have Gibraltar right over here, they decide to place it in 1, 2, 3, and 4 spaces away from them. They're going to place it like this. Then we're going to take the token that correspond to this special ability, and we can see that we have delay of 2. So since right now, of course, this has to be the activation of the blue team, delay of 2 means that we're going to place it 1 and 2 turns away from us. So it's going to be right over here. Then if a different legend is going to use one of these special abilities and also going to add one more token to the same delay that we have, basically we're going to take their token and we're going to place it below the defensive bombardment token that we have over here. Like this, when with the initiative token we're going to arrive over here, we're going to first of all resolve what we have over here, then below it, and so on. After we have resolved the bombardment, we're going to take the mini and the token and we're going to place it back next to the legend board. And then what happens is that we're going to have something that is called cooldown 3. In this case, we're going to simply take this token and we're going to place it right over here, since we will need to wait 3 times until the cooldown will finish, and then we'll be able to take this token back and reuse this special ability. Some gear or abilities, like this token that we have over here, that is called reduce each ability cooldown by 2, well, that kind of speaks on its own, and basically when we will decide to use it, then we're simply going to take the token that was placed over here on the board, and we're going to take it 2 steps to the left. If by that time the token is basically going out from the board, that means that we can reuse this ability the moment that we wish to. In the next example, when we're talking about the dome of protection, we're going to take this dome that we have right over here. We're going to place it at the distance between 0 and 2. So let's say that they have decided to place it in a distance of 2, 1 and 2, they're going to place it right over here. And then we can see that we have here duration 3. In this case, it's going to last for us 3 activations, and that means that we're going to count 1, 2, and then go back over here 3. We're going to place this token right over here. That means when we have again the keyword duration, that this dome is going to stay on the board until the initiative marker is going to be placed right over here. Then we're simply going to take this token and place it right over here on number 3, since this has a cooldown of 3, just like we have seen before with the defensive bombardment. The last thing, guys, that we're going to talk about is what happens when this initiative marker is actually going right over here. So we have here a set of things that we will need to do. First of all, any legend that is actually right now outside of the ring, and those are these things that we have at the corner of the board, they're going to take damage according to what we have over here with the threshold. If it's around 1 until 3, we're going to take 8 damage, then 4 or 5 we're going to take 12, and then 6 and 8 we're going to have 18 damage. Now obviously right now the situation is that this ring is actually at the corners of the actual board, so no legends are actually going to be that way, but soon we're going to see how the ring is going to start closing on us. The next thing that we'll need to do is to draw 1 fit card from the fit deck into our hands, and this will be a good time to tell you that we're not having here hand limit. Then we're going to move all the tokens that we have on the cooldown. So again, if we had this token right over here, right now they're going to move 1 step to the left. And the last thing that we need to do is to advance the round marker. So from round 1, we're going to move to round 2, but before that, we'll need to resolve whatever we have over here. So let's continue with that. Here we have 2 icons. The first one says that we need to start close down the ring. So this is where this card is going to come into effect. Here it says that the borders to the top of the mat are going to go down by 2. In this case, we'll need to take these 2 components of the ring and push them down by 2, just like this. Then we can see that the left side of the board is going to close down on us by 1. And the last thing that we have is that the right border is going to close down on us by 1 as well. After we have resolved that, the next icon that we have is that we need to simply take this card, reshuffle this deck, and then draw another one and place it on top. Pay attention that the marks that we have over here actually correspond to each other, so it goes to the same direction. As you can see, right now we have basically 2 legends that are outside of the ring, but they don't take damage immediately because now we're going to move to round number 2. And after 2 more activations, 1 time for the red and 1 time for the blue, again we're going to have this transition phase. At this point, when we're looking at the topmost icon that we have, if at this point we still have some of the legends that are situated outside of the borders of the ring, then they're going to take the damage again according to the threshold where we have the round marker. And that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I hope that you learned something new or saw something that you like. In this case, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's absolutely free and it's a huge way to help me out. Thank you for watching. Take care and I'll see you next time.